Was there right over there? Yeah, it has to be. Well, it looks more like a ditch now. But, yeah. So. Why would you like some coffee, Luther? Just buy me some
thanks.
coffee.
I just have two.
Booth? I don't know what kind of booth.
So there was some intention back here to do something. I mean, it was, it's sort of ritualistic, isn't it?
Okay, and the Johnston building sits up here.
Back at you.
That's right. I forgot all about that. I love the big hedges back there and around the monument. That was a wonderful, sort of mysterious place.
Good place.
I promised the church I would give them a copy of these since we've just gotten the plan, because I'm trying to encourage them to do it appropriate. Give everybody a copy of this one if we don't have a copy of it. Barbara, I want to give you this.
You take a turn to the left, and that just like this a little bit.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I really don't know exactly how far,
Like this.
how big a change you mentioned.
To me, there's the alignment to the lake that was changed. But he doesn't say that, it's just that it's what.
Well, you think he's talking, when you say the left-hand side, he was facing the front of the house, making about that.
The line the house would be to the lake, since there's an open field in front. Well, did y'all want to sit down for a few minutes? He said he thought of some other stories that he wanted to tell us. Didn't you say?
Oh, yes.
I want to make sure we don't forget those, because when we start walking outside, we'll get so excited about what you tell us about that, we might forget about these stories. So why don't we sit down just a minute and do that. Before we do that, though, I wanted to give you this for Friends Night is coming up, and Nick Bragg can't be here today. He's in New York. This is yours. Oh, thank you. So we realized we've been there about 2 hours.
You can't wear me out on Reynolda. I'm in Reynolda, period. Fantastic. Just a few things. Dad and my mother very devoted to each other. I mean, they were just like that. And when he died in 77, she literally died with him. She never came back. Which was enclosed in down there, watching television, right? And I'll never forget one day at lunch, we were talking, and Mom said, "So Rob, let's go to a movie. You haven't taken me a movie in years." He said, "I did too. I took you to see." I was the end of that talk about movies. I never heard any more about that. And Dick Reynolds, do you know about the calliope? There was a calliope up near the pig pens up there. All around the lake, up where the pig pens were. And a big old, like, a bunch of steam in it. Somebody sits at the keyboard and it hot food pitches.
They're usually in the parades for the circus, aren't they? When the circus comes to town, it's a calliope that plays the music.
It's on wheels, just like a wagon, something like that. Steam pipes up and you play it with a keyboard. That was amazing.
What's a gang mower? Is that just a large mower?
And that's a bunch of mowers grouped in one put together with different blades. A blade here and a blade in the middle, a blade over here. I don't know. Maybe when they redid the house. Mower. Below the blacksmith shop, towards Reynolda Road, all that field started back in there. It's completely, literally filled with pipe, with lines, new septic tank. Dick Reynolds had his island Sapelo, and his pilot McGinnis, Mac McGinnis. And Dick Reynolds had a tri-motor Ford Plane. And he asked my dad and Steve Warrington to go down to Sapelo. He wanted Dad to do some landscaping down there for him. And for some reason, McGinnis never did like Steve Warrington. So why? They got about halfway between Winston Airport and Sapelo. We turned, waited for Steve Warrington, went to the bathroom. He turned that plane completely upside down. The red steel on he was just wet from head to toe. That's my dad's tale about that. And, well, Dad got a pony for me one time, a white pony named Dixie. And that was a very stubborn animal. And sometimes Dixie wouldn't move it off a little cart to go behind. I could ride in the cart, you know, and a lot of times that pony wouldn't move. And so my mother would get out of the car, go around in front, and walk. She walked, Dixie walked. That was fine. One day, I guess the pony was mad or something. Mom got out of the car and walked with Dixie. Dixie went behind the one time on the rear end. That was the end of the pony. The next day, the pony was gone. Pony. I might think it's more stuff in the wall. I can't. That's just a little funny concept.
Well, that's good. We're glad we want to hear anything that you can think of about life at Reynolda.
Well, you were saying in here when he died in 77, but he and all the times got the plot in Salem Cemetery. And my grandfather, grandmother, my uncles, William and Jim, Henry, my father, and my mother. Buried. I know when mother died, both of us, I think he buried all the time. He said, now where are you going to put your mama? I said, if the plot I know is crowded, but you get her in there somehow, you have to bury her on top of my dad, because she'd be there with him. She wanted to be inseparable.
Speaking of the cemetery, I was reading something the other day that said that when Katharine Reynolds died, they lined her grave with orchids that they brought down from New York in a special train car. Do you ever remember hearing your dad talk about that?
Never heard about that. Well, no, she wasn't buried, did you? Katharine.
She's at Salem, isn't she?
Is she Salem? She's buried up north, I understand. Maybe they transferred her back to Salem.
Was she not? I thought she was here.
Well, I'm not very good at visiting cemeteries. I just assumed that she was here.
Maybe I just assumed it
I
too.
thought that, I think against her wishes, that I think she wanted to be buried back here, but she was married up north, something. Mr. Johnston wanted to be buried up north. That's something we can look into. But, that's what I understood. I always understood.
Well, you must have read the obituaries, haven't you? Her obituaries.
I think she's here.
Well, as I say, that's all I've ever heard, you know. I couldn't
That's
back that
interesting.
up.
She died up north, so maybe that's where the rumor came from.
Could be. I knew she wanted to be buried, but she wanted to be buried here in Reynolda.
Oh, did she?
I understand, but they buried her somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that was it. Maybe she wanted to be buried here at Reynolda, and they buried her. I thought she was next to Mr. Reynolds.
She probably, I just don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I know she wasn't where the monument was.
I know she wanted to be, but they didn't bury her.
That's right. That's the confusion, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
I'm going to take a few pictures of y'all, then here if I can get this new flash to work right. I can figure out what I'm doing here. Did you think of any more places that your father worked?
No, I didn't. He put in a lot of shrubbery at hilltops. You know, farm. I showed you pictures of Heinrich home. And William loved boxwoods, and so Dad gave him boxwood every Christmas. And for, I think later on his birthday.
That's a nice present.
You've probably talked about all the plantings and things like that in the gardens, haven't you? I mean, I don't want to ask you questions that Sherry has already asked.
No, I didn't know too much about it. Sure.
Do you have memories of, say, just what was out here, for instance, or?
And just boxwoods.
Leslie Locksworth.
As a child, I wasn't interested in planning and
No,
everything.
wasn't
And
either.
especially in
Wish I had
34 when they redid the house. As I told both these nice people, I was in, under, and over the workman every day, and from the attic to the basement, just making a nuisance of myself, scrambling around, just looking, you know. Just something to do.
I think somebody asked me did we know the architect of the renovation architect?
We do know who it was, but I can't think right now. Was it Johnston? It'll come to me in a few minutes, I can't think right.
I remember his name was on the door, the office doors over there for a long, long time. And they just took that place over there when they started redoing the bungalow.
Now, that's something we should find out from you, because we don't know much about the renovation, and that's when you were growing up, was during all that, isn't it?
Yeah. B.B. Hauser, as I told you all, was one of the draftsmen. He's the one that picks up arrowhead collection for me. Dad found there was some arrowheads of devotion. But I don't know the head knocker.
Well, do you have memories of what was happening around here in the renovation? I mean, when they closed the porches in and just some details like that?
It took them so long to do this place. It was done by degrees, really, you know. And I can't remember exactly when the porches were. What year? It was 34 when they started doing it.
34. You think all the furniture was taken out?
Most of it had to be taken out because it was a big mess.
I'll tell you, we're always curious about something, is that according to the plans, this room here was part of the long porch, and it was closed in 1934, 35. But there's a bump under the door.
Yeah, I ran into it coming in.
And we can't figure out why that's there. I mean, would that have been there before they closed the room in? Did they take some tile out and put that in so that the door had a saddle? Because there is a picture of, we discovered there's a picture of my grandmother. It must have been a window right here, because we had that picture of her. We were trying to figure out where she was standing.
And when it's this porch.
Yeah, she's standing against a window. That must have been right in here. You see what, you know what I mean, don't you? That little,
that lump that everybody always trips over.
It seems to me this would have been part of the porches. I just don't know for sure. I believe it was.
But do you think they put in new heating then, or I wonder why the renovation was so extensive in 34? Because they really, I mean, as far as the plans go, it doesn't look like they did. They changed an awful lot except the entrance.
Well, all of the basement was put in, and the swimming pool and all that.
Do you know what was in the basement before they put that in?
No, I remember this automatic switchboard down there.
Oh, the switchboard was down there. The switchboard must have gotten changed around a lot. We have in our oral histories that the switchboard was back here, right? I remember when it was up by what used to be the entrance in Mrs. Reynolds' den in our, up there. And you remember when it was in the basement.
I don't know, but I do remember being there.
But I tell you, there's another thing that's a real mystery to us, is because the plans don't show it, is we don't know how people got into the basement before the renovation, except through the kitchen.
You asked me that,
I
and I couldn't be sure about that. But I don't know about another entranceway from the possible. I remember the entranceway down here into the kitchen, but I don't remember that end of the house, really, as far as the door.
Well, I guess it would make sense if they didn't if that part were not finished the way it was now, then they wouldn't need to get into and out.
Yeah, they, according to
in.
Liv Wyatt, they changed when they went swimming in the outdoor pool, they came in and changed their clothes in the basement. And I can't help but think that there might have been a small entrance right where the entrance is now.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it didn't have that curved stairway, but there might have been a way of getting in.
Mm-hmm. Well, the plans for that garden don't show anything like it. They show the planting coming right up to the door.
And the photographs don't show it either, do they?
So I don't know. And the room, you know, there is that correspondence between Katharine and Charles Barton King where they're talking about putting a room downstairs in the basement for the children's toys and that sort of thing. So maybe the kids were just, since their toys were down there, maybe the kids were just used to going in and out of the basement. So, you know, how much energy you have when you're little, it doesn't matter whether you walk an additional 50 feet or not. Not like for me. So maybe there wasn't another entrance. But you started to say a few minutes ago that the architects took over a building in the village to work.
Where the offices used to be for Reynolda Incorporated, across from the post office. Put the post office in the middle of the circle, right? And the offices were all up and down. On top there, and underneath, electrician shop and plumber shop. Storage room.
And then the architects just took over the Reynolda Incorporated's offices?
Well, some of them. I'm sure some of them. They had a place to spread out the blueprints and all that sort of thing. And I remember, too, that's where I went to check in with the Rehouse and was looking like when he was putting the arrowheads together.
Oh.
And so that, I know that.
And he was one of the draftsmen who worked for the architects.
So the electrician and the plumber shop were under the administration building. Okay, good. I wondered where they were. I wonder if they got moved around too, did they?
Yeah. I'll tell you, the plumber, Mac, he lived in a little house at the end of the hill going down to the power plant on the right before you get to
Where
Pop
Mr.
Henry.
Hendricks lived for so long?
Now he lived at the bottom of the house. You know, remember?
Yeah.
You remember? All right. Now his house was where the Katharine Smith, whatever it is, Babcock Foundation offices are, and this building, when you, after you pass the greenhouse and take a left, go down toward the village shops, the house right on your right there, that was Pop Hendricks' house.
Yeah. And the plumber lived where Mr. Hendricks lived right across from the heating plant in his later years.
Yeah.
Is that where the plumber lived?
And the plumber lived right up from that.
Okay, after that. Mrs. Pinkston used to live there. Did you ever know Mrs. Pinkston?
Pinkston,
Pinkston?
yeah, well, that name's awful to me, but I haven't heard him in 50 years. I don't know. Pinkston, now tell me about Pinkston.
Well, she used to take care of us.
Oh.
In the, I'd say, when did we move here? Late 50s and 60s.
Her name was somewhere back there, but I don't remember.
Was Mac Mahoney the plumber?
Mac Mahoney, thank you very much.
Al Drake says that he had his shop down where the heating plant is.
I know he lived down there, but he had parts and everything underneath the offices up here. Like pipes and stuff like that.
Well, he may have, this was, I think when Al Drake was living here was in the 20s, so maybe if you were here in the 30s, maybe he had moved around again. That's what I was wondering about. Robert was asking if they had moved, so maybe that's a sample.
Oh, I was just thinking about where they actually lived.
But do you think there was a house that was just the house for the plumber, and whoever was the plumber would live in that house? I just wondered how it was decided who lived where.
Yeah.
So if this is the plumber's house, that was the plumber's house, and if this is the super landscape.
And of course, you know about the house, the frame house that was torn down between my folks' house and Lindsay Sapp's house. There's the guy that ran the power plant, Dancy, Mr. Dancy. That was a ramshackle old house, and they just finally tore it down.
Now, did we know that there was a house that was torn down?
I didn't until he told us the other day. So So was that a house that was already here on the property, and they just used it?
Apparently it was, because it was a big old rickety, it looked like a fire trap, a big old house. And it wasn't an older house, by any means.
But it was on Reynolda Road, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, probably didn't know what
Could that have been the old boarding house
it could have been.
done over, you think? Because that's where the boarding house was.
Well, maybe so then.
It's at least one picture where you can see it, a picture taken in front of the church, and you can see across the road, and just barely make it out.
See, there's a well house between our house and the Nancy house up there.
What was it made of? There's a picture of a well house that we don't know where it was. What did that well house look like?
Well, it's just like anybody's well house, a round brick well house with a cover on it and a roof and so forth.
That was one thing I wanted to show him, was a picture of that well house, and we'll try to show you that before you leave today and see it. Because we didn't know, it came in some pictures that were given to us not too long ago, but we didn't know where it went, or whether it was actually part of Reynolda or not.
What about the roads around here? Were they pretty much the way they are now, or?
Yes, they were. You couldn't roller skate, so I never learned how to roller skate. But boy, was it a green thing for a bicycle. It'd be all over the place. You had to have a bicycle. Yeah, the road's just exactly like that.
That's right, I remember roller skating too. Do you remember the road around the lake?
Oh, fine, yes, I've been around it many times.
Can you kind of describe that, and how you remember it?
It was just a woodsy road. We just went around the whole lake. And there was a little path down on the other side to go right down to the swimming pool. And you go all the way back around again. And there was a little picnic shed or brake shed, or whatever you want to call it, down there at number 9. I believe it's number 9. Green. T1. But it was just a dirt road. It wasn't a gravel road, it was a dirt road.
But
Well used and well kept up.
Yeah. And how many, do you remember, could you just see the lake? I was trying to remember if you could see the lake any time other than where the vineyard used to be. You don't, although we called it the road around the lake,
You couldn't.
you didn't really see the lake very much, did you?
No.
No. Mostly woods.
But sure, isn't that road still there?
I walked part of it, but it's getting pretty covered in kudzu on the backside of the lake.
From the Faculty Drive area, you can just see a little bit of it, right? The part that goes past the Old Town Golf Course. It always makes me very nostalgic to see this much of the road. Was the picnic shed, could that have been what we call the kitchen? The outdoor kitchen?
No, this was right down there where the artesian well, just below the artesian wells.
Oh, okay. I think that's...
And no, it was just a little lean-to or something.
a lean-to.
A golf or something like that.
Could it have been a spring house? I think there was a spring house there at one time.
I don't remember. I'm not going to tell you because I don't remember. I don't put that anything wrong. I just remember that when the golfers, of course I was caddying, when the golfers got through with the first 9 holes, it was one of somebody's tasks to go from that to the store across the road, on the road down there, right across from the gardens.
Yeah, I remember that.
Get them Coca-Colas and bring them all the way back up there and down there, up and down Coca-Cola before they started Section 9.
And there was a little store, just a little country store.
Oh, yeah.
Did it have a name? Did it have a name, that store?
No, I don't know. It was right below, on the Reynolda Road, right below, the big White House. It's been up there since I was born.
Mm-hmm.
It used to belong to somebody. You know, the big White House.
It was right near the entrance to Summit School.
Yeah, it was above it, just above it.
Just above it.
And it had a pool table in it. I remember that's where I learned how to play pool.
Oh, really?
And I was reminded you of that slot machine. And
It had a slot machine.
it had a slot machine in it. And I'll never forget it.
Well, I can remember going there to get all-day suckers, is what they were called. I expect they lasted an hour.
You knew where.
But we called them all-day suckers,
You
yeah.
remember that store then?
Oh, sure.
Mr. Fellow, the name of Mr. Lazenby ran that.
Mr.
So, Lazenby.
Lazenby.
Lazenby. One word, Lazenby now. Exactly how you spell it, I don't know.
Well, what else do they have to sell there? Do they have?
Oh, they had canned sardines and crackers and pork and beans and Cokes, stuff like that, just snacks. Then you walk down 2 steps and get some food in the back. Floor just don't gave like that, and it's a rock when you stand talking.
Now I have a question. Did your mama know you were going down there where the pool table and the slot machine was? I didn't think she did.
What do you remember about 5 Row?
I think I told you folks most of it.
You did? Okay. Well, we won't repeat
But
it.
there was a little white church, and there were 5 houses on each one of them. And I just go through that once in a while, on bicycle, someplace new to go, you know, hadn't been by that something. All those colored folks out here they were the best people in this world, I'll tell you that. They'd do anything in the world for you. Just as nice as they could be. I know I've made a mess of myself so many times under the feet, getting in the way. It was a complete bore. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed talking to them and being around them. And I told you all about the incident thing. Dad took me on his shoulders to the church. I was in a moving thing. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Ed Lash, now you should talk. You talk to Ed Lash?
Oh, yeah, we've had at least 2 oral histories with Ed, haven't we?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2. But we need to look at that and ask him some more questions, I think. You're right.
He knows that. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
No.
Did you ever hear him sing? Mr. Conrad was talking about what a beautiful voice he had. That's what he was, the incident he was referring to at the church that he was singing. He said he had just an incredible voice.
Yeah, the one night, nowadays he knew about this, don't know. And why he won't even do it, don't know. But he took me over there one night, summer night, beautiful night, and we got to the side of the church, and there's one room, the back of the church. All the congregation was facing the other way. He put me up on his shoulders, and Ed Lash stood up and in a soprano voice sang Amazing Grace to the piano, and he talked about tearing you up. That's beautiful, beautiful. So that's when and Dr. Pop Hendrick's funeral, when I saw him there, I hadn't seen him in 30 years, I don't guess, but I tapped him on the back and turned around. I said, "Do you still sing soprano?" He said, "No, sir. That's long gone."
I was hoping we could get him to sing.
I was thinking the same thing.
Wonderful, Amazing Grace.
He's embarrassed to death. Don't. John Carter, he was there. I don't know if I even remember that name. The chauffeur.
Now, John Carter lived in the village for a while. Do you know how long he lived in the village?
In Reynolda?
Didn't he live in
John Carter lived in a little white house off of,
West, I know where he lived, with the big Christmas tree.
yeah.
I'm not sure what the name of
That's
that.
Spring
It's just
Street
off of
now.
Reynolda Road.
Yeah. Off of 5 points or 4 points or something like
Well, I think the reason Sherry asked that question is because in one of the oral histories, we have John Carter living in the village in the early years. And we didn't know how long. He was in the house which was Mr. Henrik's and now the Babcock Foundation. And we don't know if that was temporary or if he lived there for, 2-3 years. So we're trying to find that out.
You remember the big Christmas tree? I'd forgotten about that.
Oh, yes.
The biggest one in town.
Yes, it was.
It's pretty.
Well, y'all getting ready to walk around for a while and look at things? You think we can leave these things here? Or maybe we should put them up so we've got visitors so they can come back into this area. Maybe we'll just stick these upstairs somewhere. Something. Take just a minute to do that. You sure?
The big house, this is the bungalow right here.
All right, okay. This is the village, right?
Now, do you remember the poultry pens being here?
I don't remember any poultry pens.
No, I don't either. Because we used to live, now during the war, we lived
There's a quarry.
there.
Oh, I've always wondered where y'all lived during the war.
Where did you
Number
live?
3, right there.
Yeah, is that where Mrs. Brown lives now?
No, I can't think of their names, but I know that Betty and Charlie, I don't know, they just put a wall around it.
Was this in Reynolda? It was in Reynolda.
Yeah, because you see, here's the church, and there's the manse, and you can see right in there the garden.
Boy, you were living, during the war, then you were living across the road, across Reynolda Road. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Does it be the Rice house, Thomas or
No, I
Tom
think they
Rice?
lived there, didn't they? Well, the Rices during the war lived there, I think.
Number 1.
Yeah. I can't remember who lived there. And then Joe Rice lived over here somewhere.
But this house,
Number 20.
this lower house, which was expanded, made a lot bigger. He ran it. Agnew Bunsen. Agnew Bunsen.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Now, we have some plans that show that all of this was landscaped around the athletic field. I gotta remember a lot of honeysuckle around there.
Now, is this the memorial?
That's a monument, isn't it?
That's what I mean for Mrs. Reynolds.
Yeah, monument.
There
And
are-
there are your Sunday school classes right in here, I guess. Okay, and then the chapel, church there.
Now, do you remember anything about the quarry?
Yeah. I mean, I've just been around it. I looked into it.
Was it big?
No, it wasn't too big.
Do you know what they did with that stone? Was it used anywhere at Reynolda?
I've never seen any stone used at Reynolda. I mean, in any quantities, you know. I don't know what in the world they did with it.
So it wasn't a quarry that Reynolda ran. Maybe it was
No.
just a quarry that was there when she bought the property.
It was not active at all. It was just a stone you could see around the sides of it.
What kind of stone was it? Do you know? Was it North Carolina bluestone? Or
Looked like it was granite to me. It's of some sort, type of description. I just don't know.
So, were the vegetable gardens here? Do you remember the
I
vegetable
don't know the
gardens?
vegetable garden well.
Here?
I don't know. Let me see.
No, I don't really. Down in that kind of valley, see, there's the lake,
And
and there's that little pool.
there's outdoor pool. I don't know.
Well, that's not the-
over there.
that's-
No. They were behind the greenhouse back in land.
Yeah, right over in here, right in
Okay,
here.
yeah.
There are the formal
Yeah.
gardens and the...
Yeah.
well, what about the bigger fields of vegetables? Where were they?
I don't know.
Well, it says apple orchard here. But I remember the vineyard. The vineyard was here. This is the road around the lake. And I remember as we were getting towards the end, you looked across the vineyard and you looked across the lake and you could see the barns and everything. So they put it on this hill facing the sun. But I think that all up around Wake Forest were cornfields.
Yeah. There was a great big garbage dump.
Where was
Where
that?
was
I
that?
never heard
Whole
anybody
place.
talk
And
about
where's your Lake Road again? Lake Road, okay.
Yeah.
We'll go back to this. Yeah. Who? Well, it was sort of a side shoot off of the lake road, just as you started walking around the lake.
Oh, really?
From the dam.
From the dam.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the dam.
And I know my dad would take me out there after I learned how to shoot a rifle. He finally gave me a single shot 22, and I'd go in the afternoons when he got through work and so forth, and shoot rats. That was
Rats?
Yeah.
Garbage?
Oh, boy, it's a tremendous old garbage dump, and your rats in there that long.
Now, what'd you do with them when you shot them? Did you just leave them there, or did you
Gosh, yeah.
dump
Who
them
wants
in
a rat?
Your mama wasn't gonna take them home, huh?
Nobody wants to steal a rat. Boy, they left him be.
Do you remember anything about the polo field?
Oh, on Polo Road.
Mm-hmm. Did you say something the other time we talked to you about going out and watching them play polo?
Mm-hmm. They had a stable out there. And as a matter of fact, one of the things we had to do was go to Summit School. Every other Friday or something like that was do horseback riding. And I would try to get sick. I'd try to do anything to get out of that. Because I hated horses and they hated me. And I didn't want to get on. But anyway, yeah, I watched them play.
Who played polo?
Mr. Thurman Chatham, Penn Horton, some other regulars around town.
What about some of the Haynes? Didn't the Hayneses play?
I can't remember any Haynes.
No, Kofi Haynes told me the other day that it was basically the Haynes brothers on the team and Mr. Johnston. So this would be later that you would remember.
Well, I knew Mr. Ralph. Mr. Ralph Haynes. He could have played. I don't remember. He wasn't an aggressive player or something. He didn't stand out for me.
Stand out.
Do we know where the stables were? Do you remember where they were?
I couldn't pinpoint him now because he's grown up and developed, so out there now I wouldn't be able to find him. It's off to the left, on Polo Road. Yeah.
Well, do we think that the polo field was built? Well, that was not built in 1950, was it? Is that later?
I think that's
we think it's a later, 30s, not 30s, but 20s edition.
I think so.
And the stables.
Safe.
Because we had the article in the newspaper where it's just getting started, where they're bringing in the manager and they're talking about putting the hedges around and that sort of thing. So I think that was in the 20s. Do you remember anything, looking at this map and seeing the Reynolda Park section that was divided later, did your father work on doing the plantings for most of these houses, do you think?
What do you mean, Reynolda Park?
These houses were property that was sold off, like the Stockton's house. This is Arbor Road and Kent Road. Would your father have worked on those?
He could have. Stockton House, Mr.
And the Kents?
Kent, I remember the Kent house. Stockton's brother-in-law. His daddy lived there. Ralph and Maggie May Stockton. But I don't know for sure. Dad never did talk too much about his jobs. I can see him right now sitting on the porch in that swivel chair with a card table. He did everything on the card table. His blueprint stuff. Blueprints and so on. But I never did bother him.
Was the dairy still active? Do you remember the dairy at all?
The dairy, I was very active, as I told you. That was a real treat to be able to go up there and beg, borrow, and steal a half pint of chocolate milk. That's
So,
and the laundry was closed. I don't remember that.
the laundry. Do we know where the laundry was?
Oh, sure you do.
Where was it? Which building was it in?
Right almost across from corn cribs. All right, you know what? It was an antique shop down there underneath kind of the bar. It was in one of those buildings.
Okay, so it was where the antique, down in here, where the antique shops are.
Yeah.
The laundry?
Another thing we found from him the last time we talked to him was that there was actually a hand-pulled fire truck that they had here. Did you know that?
Oh my
It
heavens.
wasn't a fire truck exactly. It was hoses
Right.
on a big reel, with wheels. You hooked a horse,
So it was just,
and you got a big nozzle on the end.
Was it ever used?
Antiquated. Not in my time. It wasn't. I don't believe it could have been because the hose was rotten as sticking to me.
So, do we know what kind of horses? I don't want to ask you any questions you already been asked, but I am curious about your memories of the actual stable in that building.
I don't remember the horses, really. I think I told you that, but I couldn't be sure. I don't really remember.
You didn't like them, and they didn't like you.
Well, that's summing it up again, yeah.
What about the cars? Were the cars? This was always the garage, I guess, wasn't it?
Well, the big garage is where the dress shop is now. What's that little dress shop?
Gazebo.
Gazebo. That's where the garage was, and all the trucks, all the farm trucks were in that. As I told you all, number 14 specifically. I'd like to know where that is now. My dad's car, my dad's pickup. All the trucks.
I remember a sleigh being in here, stored in the stable somewhere.
Sleigh was stored upstairs
Yeah. Okay.
in the stable, and then do you remember down below, locked up supposedly, were the two Rolls Royces?
No.
Remember those?
No.
Mhm.
But that's good to know. What color were they?
Yellow and green.
Yellow and green. So wouldn't they have been at this end right here? I bet that's where they were.
Down the end towards the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
where the bike shop is now.
Well, did anyone use the yellow and green Rolls Royce?
No, they were up on blocks. I don't even know where the wheels were, or the tires. But they were all up on blocks, and I used to play on them. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. I enjoyed it. I remember the days that they took them off and tried to get them started, and working on them and trying to get them started down that steep hill toward the lake. And one of them, no problem at all. The other one, they worked for days on it to get it to go. Finally, they did. And that was the end of Rolls Royces. No more.
Do they sell them then?
I'm sure they must have.
So what date would that be about?
26, 30, I was 33, 34, something like that. I'd have been 6, 7, 8 years old. 34, 35, 36, something like that.
Do you remember the furniture from the Fifth Street house being stored here?
Mm-hmm.
Because I read somewhere that all the furniture from the Fifth Street house was stored in the barn somewhere.
There was a lot of furniture stored in the barns. I remember that. I mean, they were filled with furniture.
Mm-hmm. Did you know? Well, that wasn't as interesting as a car to a 6-year-old boy, I guess. Who cares about a
could have been
sofa?
furniture in there,
But that was
I
after the
remember.
cows. I think all that was stored, in the dairy barn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to run the cows up there, pull the cows up there to milk them in the afternoon from the pastures down there. I'd sit on a wagon tongue where the villages are now, those little village, little shops are.
Mm-hmm.
And sit on a wagon tongue and watch the cows come up and drive them up.
Where'd they come
Street.
from?
Down to the power plant. up
Okay,
that
so they
way.
were down in here?
Mhm.
Where it's this field that was
Right, and come right up and let them drink in the trough.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember swimming in the lake or in this pool here? Or?
No, I remember fishing the lake, but
What'd you catch?
believe it or not, bass and brim.
Really?
Way back there, way back there. Yes, sir. Good brim and bass. That was the fun. You see, when Mr. Babcock dredged the lake, and I don't remember what year that was. You can tell me that probably.
I didn't know it had ever been dredged.
No, the lake was dredged, and he put in 2 dams up at the end of it, at the far end of it, where the stream came in to settle the traps.
Mm-hmm.
And all the of development and everything.
There's, excuse me.
That's right. All the development and everything up there, they tore the place up so badly above it. And all the silt, and it came down and finally just filled in both settlement traps and overflowed them, and that's what went right into Lake Catherine.
So you can remember when the lake started to die?
I remember paddling canoe all over that lake.
What was the lake like before then? Was it clear running or was it muddy? It was clear.
It was mostly clear.
Oh, really?
That was way before now these places got filled up. All the settlement and started going straight into the lake. But then, as I told you all, in the winter time, a lot of times it froze over, and you could ice skate on it.
Do you ever go ice skating on it?
But I remember when it was, it being frozen.
But the pond you're talking about, the 5-year-old used that pond. That's swimming pool.
Here, for swimming or baptisms?
For swimming, I guess. Yeah, for swimming. I'm sure they use it probably for baptisms too.
I think we have a story about that, don't we?
I
A
think we
baptism
do.
there?
Do you remember seeing, could you see the concrete bottom? I've always heard there was a concrete bottom to that, was there?
I didn't know that.
That's what I had
I
heard
didn't know.
somewhere.
Well, let's see. Should we go on and...
I want to ask you one question about this picture. That this is the way Thomas Sears drew the gardens to look. Do you remember these fruit trees being planted around the edges, like he shows them, like they are on the planting plan?
Yeah, where is this exactly?
This is in the vegetable garden.
In the vegetable garden.
The dollhouse is probably here. So
Oh,
those
yeah.
are the two houses and the greenhouse there.
No, I don't remember.
Because I'm sure it drove your father crazy having all these fruit trees in there, all that mess from all this fruit. I mean, it looks pretty on the
Like
plan.
they lasted, do you?
No, I don't think they did. That's what
I don't remember when the fruit trees. We would have had fruit to eat. I think. And we did not. I don't remember much fruit.
That's a lot of fruit trees, and it would be a big mess to keep cleaned up. So, all right, are we ready for that?
Well,
See a metro
It is so pretty
to,
out.
keep up too. I mean, you got to support. I know I've got fruit trees.
Oh, there, not these? Oh, I didn't know there were other tennis courts up there. What's on the map? Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. Do I remember? Where were they?
They're right down that path. Maybe we'll walk down that way if we go down by the lake or something. But those are the ones that went with the house. I had forgotten that there were the other tennis courts, so I just assumed that's where you were playing.
Do you remember what the tennis courts were made out of?
No, I wouldn't know.
I think they were red clay.
What? I didn't know what we made tennis courts out of. Ruth, you got all the machinery.
Okay. Hi, Richard.
Galleries. I'm going to go to the gardens first. Funny feeling that we got the tennis court was made out of sand. Is that possible? Sand? I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Now you're going to give me a chance to smoke a Reynolds cigarette. Golly.
Sorry, all this is what's on the plan. Plant in there that you sent us unusual. Is it that? What's that light colored stuff back there?
And that's winter jasmine. It's not supposed to look like a ground cover. That's actually a shrub, but I've never seen them do like
That's
this.
what I think.
Yeah, see, it's supposed to be. It's a shrub. These are just. I don't know what.
Why it looks like a ground cover?
It does look like a ground cover.
Does it bloom and smell like it?
It has yellow blooms that look like forsythia in February. But these didn't. I'm going to show those to Mark when he comes. He's going to come with me the first of next week and walk around and replace the things that died and all. And I'm going to ask him why we have ground cover winter jasmine as opposed to shrub. And these tulips are too. They're awfully pretty.
That's really lovely, but the forget-me-nots and the tulips, is that what was on the plan?
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what was on the plan, supposedly, but these are supposed to be this is supposed to be a deep rose pink. It looks red to me. But anyway, to see what I think, see these colors together, this is more what it's supposed to look like. This pinks and blues to pick up the shades in the,
Yeah, more pastel.
yeah. But that's, it's supposed to show you that when you can't get the real thing and you try to substitute something from a picture, that color is not reproduced the same way. Do you remember when this garden was changed?
I know this walk wasn't here. It was all just straight out to the little statue. I don't remember this walk being in here.
Do you remember it when the drive came up to the house?
Oh yeah.
So you remember before this
Yeah.
was changed?
But I was looking for the drive and I drove in and had to park for a while. I couldn't find it.
You forgot it had changed for 50 years. And these forget-me-nots we didn't plant. These all reseeded themselves. We've been planting them for years, and all these are reseeded.
Did they really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought they needed lots of water and. Because I remember forget-me-nots from growing up. They were in our garden a lot. You don't see them that much anymore.
You don't see them. I don't know why. It's probably because they're like planting and
That house will be there another 500 years.
Do you remember where the drive came in exactly? Did it come down by the magnolia tree and come up?
Yeah, it came up and went around to the side over there, as I recall.
I was born in 1934, Sharon.
I've always wondered if it came. That magnolia is so big, so I've always sort of assumed that it came
On this side of it.
here on this side.
I have to get back on the road there to get the bearing really
Oh,
on where it came in.
it could have come in where the asphalt path is and curved around, but I've never been sure of that.
I remember the old road to the kitchen down there, and then kitchen still there.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that pink dogwood.
It's pretty.
Not only is it huge, is that big for a dogwood?
It is big for dogwood. That's about the maximum size they give.
The other thing that I remember around here are abelia hedges. That's an abelia hedge. It used to be. I don't know if it still is or not. And you wonder, I was wondering what the hedges, everyone talks about the hedges in 5 Row. They all remember the hedges between the houses.
I don't.
And I don't know whether anyone ever said what kind of hedges they were. But I think today, because the abelia has so many bees around it,
If they were privet, they'd still be there.
they're probably still there.
If they were privet, you can't get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, the hedges on the outskirts along Reynolda Road and the hedges at the polo field were privet. That's why I thought they might have been privet. Could have been abelia.
Yeah, your
because
road.
it's on the houses.
Your road went in on the other side.
Where the path is?
Over there. Yeah, more or less. No, a little bit higher up, I believe. Yeah, on the other side of this magnolia.
And then it turned around. Okay. Well, I'm glad you know that.
So it's so swept in.
Yeah. Feel street.
It used to, the hedge had been all along there. Exhibit is that little, I'll show you one there's solid wood.
See, one thing I'm sure of is it wasn't like this in here. But I'm not sure what it was.
Sort of woodsy.
I think it was woodsy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the ivy. I think it was just
I don't
very
know.
pretty wooded
Yeah, it was woody.
ground with maybe a little path.
See what he said about it's hard to get rid of? It's coming up there. That's privet.
Oh, okay, I get it. I think I have something. It would have been woods with daffodils, I think, coming up in it.
I missed the daffodils this year. I'm sure they will came up.
Beautiful this year. Beautiful.
Who planted? Anybody have any idea who planted those daffodils?
Mrs. Reynolds had it done. There's a
No.
story about that one of the nieces told about hearing that the guys got so tired of planting. She ordered a boxcar load, and they got so tired of planting them they dug big holes and dumped bushel baskets full.
Who tells that?
One of the maybe Mrs.
Mrs. Spitzmiller told us that several times, I think.
I'm sure you got it down, right?
Do you remember when the cryptomeria was put in? Because I think there used to be crab apples, not the ones in the main lawn, but here in the center we've got pictures of crab apples. Do you remember when the cryptomeria went in?
I do not. It's a strange looking tree anyway. Always has been in my eye.
Well, you know, I think they grow better in Japan, and I saw one in France once. Absolutely magnificent, like a redwood.
Now they get much larger in Japan than we.
Now, are these all the original configurations?
I don't know about this. I don't think this is. I've never seen this on a plan. I think this was changed at some point.
Oh, here, I have a plan right here in my hand.
The cryptomeria are right here.
Right. What's here in this plan? Does it say?
It doesn't say that this is Tom Thumb. It doesn't. That's the name of the alyssum that's there. I don't know. It doesn't say what the trees are. So you see, this still shows all the fruit trees around here. So we are standing right. Wait a minute. We're right here, so you can see that that's not. It doesn't have these little walls. You can tell.
All roses. I guess there's still a few roses left over there. Climbing, what do you call those? Climbing roses?
Well, this is why I told you I never really realized that there was depression because of the vegetables. We had just multiple vegetables, fresh vegetables every day in his garden.
Do you remember when the gardens were changed? Sometime in, I know that in 1936 they changed the plantings at the house. There's a memo that your dad wrote to the, must have been 436 because it was before your mom bought it, so he wrote it to the Board of Trustees and talking about taking out some of the overgrown hedges and that sort of thing. And I think that some of that was changed over in there too. Do you remember when any of that was
I remember
changed?
this place. Not in the paper.
Does the irrigation system still work in this garden?
No, there's a new one that they just put in last year, but they haven't had an irrigation system for years. we did grass verges last year too.
The grass what?
Verges here, the edge of the border. Well, that's what they're called beside a road. I don't know what they're called beside a path. These are still the original drainage stuff. They're here. What? The mites have patched out. The miners, I mean. They're supposed to be coming Monday to spray ours at the house. But these are the drainage in here right there. That's what comes out. Well, see.
They all over these. Look at that.
Yeah. Ooh, gosh, that is a rat. Is it a rat or a mouse? It's a rat. I think that's a rat. He's pretty big. Well, a field mouse. We'll say he's a field mouse.
Very large field mouse.
Yes. That seems much nicer for a garden to have a field mouse. I'm going to put this trash in the trash can. I think it's a ratty. They're scurrying around in here. Well, you have to run around in here. It's apple walk. Same thing that they planted on the post going into the chapel.
Is it still on here?
And it's stuff that looks like grape leaves that have this blue, very turquoise blue berry. And I think there was also common hydrangea in here. Yeah, here's it. Extremely tolerant of adverse conditions, that means you can't get rid of it. All in the woods, across this porch. Boy, look at how big this vine is. This must be an original one. Look at how big it is.
I wonder what's happened to the little tables that were here. Little tea tables?
I've wondered what happened to those too, because they really were pretty.
They were little wooden tables, weren't they?
I remember those chairs, the way they fit right up to the table.
They were
Triangles.
triangles.
Yeah.
I've forgotten that.
Do you think anyone actually sat here and had tea?
Which is another shame. They should have.
I do remember in one of the oral histories, maybe in Nancy's, and somebody talks about packing a picnic and coming down here. So maybe the kids just brought something down from the kitchen and played down here or something. Or maybe when they were coming down to the dollhouse, they brought food.
Well, they remember the party my grandmother gave with Paul Whiteman. And they say that the orchestra was down here somewhere. They walked in through there.
Do you remember this before the boxwood got so big, when it still had the flowers in the parterres? Let's come in the parterre a minute. Careful.
I know. I had trouble with all these boxwoods. I think good.
So the boxwoods were pretty big.
Yeah, they were big.
So they weren't kept as edging boxes. Even when you were coming along, there weren't any flowers planted in here.
I couldn't see any flowers inside.
Okay, so that means that then by the 30s, the parterres were gone.
So this is where you used to park your bicycle and head for the tunnels?
No, this is north of the tunnels. Down that way, had parked the bicycle. I hadn't went across the tunnel, that manhole yet.
Do you remember when these were grass? When you were growing up, these were grass, weren't they? And not stone?
Yes.
Yeah, because they were not stone. No. They were really grass, or they were real crushed fine gravel. I mean, real, just.
Like in the, that's like there's the tunnel now.
Oh, the old lights are still
What?
those those old lights are still there even, I remember those.
Look at this plan.
You remember this lit up at night?
No, I don't remember lit. I never saw them lit. I just remember them being there.
Okay, let's
Okay, here's the main entrance pergola, and this is the little cross vista pergola right there.
Okay.
So we're standing in what Mr. Sears refers to as the sunken garden, and you can see that it was fairly heavily planted with perennials, just like the parterres are. Do you remember it being like that? Or was it?
That planting would have been right here, right?
Uh-huh.
The box would just grew up over it.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, this is the orient same way
But
the
where are the
garden is.
mowing paths?
So this is right there.
The what now?
Those little mowing paths is that right here?
I don't think so.
Would they be
They
right
would have been
here?
right here. I don't think they show up on any of the plans because they're on the outside of the beds. That could have been something that he added later, but that is a characteristic of a Sears garden to have paths like that. Stone paths like that.
And have you looked at all of this to see are all these perennials?
And shrubs, like 44 and 11, those brown things would be shrubs. 44 is mock orange. See, and this you can see the magnolias where he says magnolias.
Is it M? Well, that doesn't mean magnolia, does it? It's not just M to relate over here.
Well, that's what. No, it doesn't have a name on it anywhere, but we always just thought that meant magnolia. I don't know where we got that. But then we did find that picture the other day that showed the magnolia zoolangiana planted there. Does this bring anything to mind looking at this plan?
I couldn't really explain to you.
I like the nieces. When we talked to the nieces, they weren't paying attention to the flowers. Well, you want to walk down into the village then?
Sure.
Anything else you want to look at while we're here, Barbara?
No, I'm discovering things every moment. We have on in one of the oral histories that the school gave an operetta under that pergola over there.
Beautiful place for it.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm not sure exactly what operetta it was. No one says, but some people remember. The school children and then the parents were all sitting there. And where that bench is, in the furthest pergola, apparently there used to be a pond there. I don't know why they took it out, but we have, I think, both a photograph and plan showing the pond.
Pond there at all. The one up, the goldfish pond, as I call it.
Yeah,
The only one I remember.
that's the only one I remember.
How much time did your father actually spend working with the gardens? Or did he do mostly, did he actually work in the gardens, or did he do mostly landscaping?
Well, later on, he did mostly landscaping. I mean, he didn't work in the garden that I know of.
Okay, but his crews didn't work in the gardens either.
No, they didn't.
That's something that I've never been quite sure of.
He always seems to me had those had them out doing something on landscape projects, but not working in
Y'all go ahead and walk. I'm going to take pictures.
God.
I think there were cherry trees on both sides here, too. Do you have that on the plan?
I didn't think there were cherry trees
Or-
next to the green. I don't think they would be next to the greenhouse
They
because
wouldn't?
they'd want the sun at the greenhouse.
wasn't serpentine. How did they get to be serpentine in an Italian garden?
That's called just trimming it where the ivy's growing. It doesn't show. See, we don't have Plan D. Plan D is what does the outside border. Plan D is the only one.
We don't have it anywhere?
We don't have a single copy of Plan D. So, but in the pictures, they're on both sides of the beds down there and over here, but I don't think they would be right next to the greenhouses because you'd want the greenhouse to have as much sun as possible.
Yeah, okay, right.
Do you remember them collaring the plane trees the way they are now?
Doing what now again?
The plane tree, see if you look through and see that London plane tree, do you remember that being done to them when you were growing up?
Being cut back like that?
Uh-huh.
Well, they would have had to have been done, Sherry. Don't they have to be done all the time?
Well, but see, that you can look at those and see that they haven't always been done, they've been done, and then they haven't been done. There were periods that they weren't, so that's what I was trying to, yeah, they're supposed to always be done, but we have a bit of a problem.
Now, do you know if Preston is planting this according to the original plans in here?
We don't have a
perennial
plan. This is Plan D, so we don't have Plan D for this.
But don't we have some perennial plants and some perennial borders?
We have all the others, all the interiors, we know what was planted in there. It's just the whole outside border we don't know. We've got pictures that, if you look through here, you can see the slight rises, so you can see where the iris beds were. Look down there, and you can see there's a long thin triangle in the middle of both of these. Those were where the iris and peony beds were, so we could see where they were.
This really, that gets me more than anything. This is supposed to be a very geometric garden. And that just doesn't work.
No, that does
Very straight lines.
I think the ivy was planted when things were cut back in the 30s. I don't think it had ivy before then.
But so much of the planting is native to Japan. Like peonies and iris and Japanese cherry trees, the Tupperware.
Do you have, do you see anything that you want to put in Old Salem with wildflowers?
Yes.
Some of those might be
Your
That's something I never saw before. Power pole. I think I mentioned that people from Winston in town come out at Christmas time and mail our packages and stuff here at the post office.
Mm-hmm.
That's
so that they would have the Reynolda.
not really until they would have to stand in line.
Oh, so they wouldn't have to stand in line.
When did they move the post office from the
After I was
center?
gone, a long time after I was gone.
Was it in the 50s that they moved the post office?
I don't know. I wasn't here.
Okay, there's a picture that shows it still in here. I'm not very good with cars, but it looks to me like that might be the early 50s.
This right smack dab in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a 57 Chevrolet in that picture. See, but I think there's newer cars as well.
So we can tell that it wasn't before 57, but we can't tell that it wasn't after. Do you remember the watering trough being in the middle of Reynolda Road out there between the two?
Before my time. Remember it right there. Because as I told you, I remember being there and playing the watering trough that morning on 1934 when all the cars started going up to Bungalow. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what it was.
What do you call these bricks, Sharon?
They're, I mean, because of the finish or the way they laid?
Finished? Oh,
That might be like. What was the walk made of when you were growing up?
It wasn't a walk here.
There wasn't a walk here.
The hedge came out down here so far and then stopped.
Just like the hedge there?
Yeah.
So there's a matching hedge over here. So was it about as far from the road as that hedge is? So you just walked in the road because there wasn't so much traffic? Let's put this way over by your house and see what you remember. If you were coming home from school to your house, well, Cox was your house where you grew up, right?
Mhm.
If you were coming through here and coming home from school, what would it have looked like? How would it look different?
I didn't come through here on the way home from school.
Well, where did you come?
I pulled in beside the Warrington house up here, which later was the Lawson house, and walked down the path, walked in front of that house down there across my house. There's a parking lot up there, as there is now. Now here was the storage places for the plumber and the electrician down here. So I remember those very well. I swiped the telephone out of the electrician's shop and put it in my attic. Hooked it up my attic.
You mean when you were growing up so you'd have a...
So I had a room up there in the back, and I had my own private room up there.
and this was the plumber here and the electrician here?
This was more for storage, and I saw a lot of plumbing supplies like pipes and stuff in there, and joints and stuff. And here was the electrician shop here, or maybe that was the plumber, this was the electrician. And I don't remember, I'm not too sure about the rest of it.
Because Wake Forest might like to put a sign out there, don't you think? Saying that?
I think that would be... Well, even if you didn't come home from school this way, let me get back to and rethink my question here. How would this have looked different when you were growing up here? Would there have been plantings behind this building?
There was a hedge all the way down, as I recall, on the other side of this little building.
So how much of this was considered your yard? Where did your yard start?
Well, I didn't consider this my yard at all, over here. Mine, I'd say, started with the maple trees. Here on over. And, let's see. There was a driveway. I don't remember that. What's that house doing there? That's the car shop, I guess. I mean, the dress shop, isn't it?
You mean that little building
Yeah.
that didn't stick out that far?
Oh, I got it. Driveway came between, that was Dad's garage. Lois, they kept up the car in the front of it. And the back of it was Daisy's house, who was my nanny and our cook. The back part of this house was.
Well,
One
that's what
room.
that door was. That's how Daisy got in and out.
One room house. A little one room place for her to stay, and a lavatory in there. And then all of this, of course, was the garage. But there was a driveway in here, and it came up, sort of came up shrubs on the left-hand side of it. Just almost up, well, it did come up to the house. And all up in here was a laundry fence.
Yeah, they all have laundry fences.
Well, and the garbage cans came in there, so the garbage trucks had a way to come up here and get the garbage, go back down again. Now that grate right there, that's part of your tunnel. Grate. And right down where we were talking about, where the electrician's job, that was a big manhole right down there. I'd park my bike in some shrubbery over there and go down that way toward the power plant.
Was this chicken coop here? No.
No, No,
I don't know where they got that.
There was a chicken coop over there. The door in this end of it. That's where my dad raised chickens, and these brooders, I think they call them. Stuff like this. And I had to dump those things every afternoon. As long as I lived. And all of this in here was roses.
I thought this must have been your dad's rose garden.
He had literally 100 rose bushes.
So the rose garden, this looks like this is a barrier where this has been planted at some time. So did your dad's rose garden come all the way over to here?
Yeah, it could have been the walkway.
Mm-hmm.
Walkway right through here, like this. And you can go down and get in your car, which is parked in the driveway there.
Mm-hmm.
And then all this was fenced in.
With a little white fence like this?
No. It's a wire fence of some sort. And there was a tremendous fig bush right where that long window is, in that little house there. Tremendous fig tree. And I used to come down in the summertime and get figs from my mother. She loved figs for breakfast. And I had a little workshop at one time in there after the chicken business got ended.
Was this little gazebo there in your dad's rose garden, or was that built back?
This?
Mm-hmm.
That was built back. There wasn't anything left of bird bags. Great big giant bird bags like that. And all these are crushed gravel walks all through here, and there's border around the rose bushes. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing but a bird bag thing.
That reminds me of the fact that this was a bird sanctuary. Reynolda was a bird sanctuary.
I didn't know I was classified as one of those.
There were big signs everywhere saying Reynolda Bird Sanctuary.
I didn't know that.
And there were gardens for birds.
Was that something your mother did?
Well, I don't know. I asked a friend of mine to do some research on that to see when bird sanctuaries became a big thing.
I think putting out a bird sanctuary sign just meant no shooting or something like that.
Do you think so?
Back in those days, you know, they were protected. I don't think there's anything too formal about it. Could be wrong, I don't think.
Well, I know our cats had to wear bells.
That's what I should do tomorrow.
Well, I tell you, you can raise cats if you want to. I shoot cats myself.
Oh, keep you away from my house.
Where's my birds? I'm a bird lover.
What did you have stairs there where these brick stairs are now?
They were brick steps. Brick steps going up.
But this would have been a cinder path or a gravel path that wasn't concrete like
It
this.
wasn't cinder, it was pulverized gravel.
Gravel.
Just real fine gravel.
Like
all,
we're in the...
They used to be in the gardens up there.
What do you call those paths in the gardens? Are they just gravel or do they have a name?
Just gravel, I think. Pea gravel.
Someone does mention gravel and cinder somewhere in one of those.
A lot of paths like that were cinder, but maybe not the ones here at Reynolda. Was that...
Dad raised chickens in this chicken lot here. I mean, big chicken, you know, when they got so big, you get them free. When mother wanted chicken for supper or something like that, Days would come down in there and go in there. I've seen him do it more times than I grab a little chicken by the head, wring its neck, throw it down, run off and leave that chicken. They stop flopping around. I'd get on a bicycle and leave. I couldn't stand that.
Did you eat it?
This chicken? Fried. Fried chicken. Mom looks like fried chicken is good for you.
Yes. Your fried chicken is good for you.
We didn't know it.
I'll tell you it now. It's just not good for you. Did your dad have anything planted on these things?
They were grass vines. And if these little rollers were, they were not wild. All through here on both sides, right at the base of this slope.
Was that still roses or was that perennial?
These would be perennials and whatever you place to put in it. No, his roses were all in the middle. Yeah.
Where that holly hedge is now, what was there?
I can't remember, but there was a hedge of some sort. It went down beside that, in that building over there. I don't remember what kind it was. More of a privet hedge or something like that.
So the privet hedge wasn't just on the borders of the property, it actually, and down beside the drive, it actually came up between some of the buildings too?
Well, don't quote me on that one, 'cause I don't know for sure. Some sort of hedge, though, was that.
How does the house look different from when y'all lived in it?
I wish I had a picture of the way it looked,
I wish you did too.
because it was not pulled out like, well, it was pulled out like that too. But there were windows. That was a bedroom.
Mm-hmm. On the right.
On the right. And window there. Changed drastically. It's hard to even picture the way it was before. You just went right up to the back door. There, over in there's where the well house was.
Where the pergola is?
Over in that well, out there. And then the old wooden house was down there a little bit further.
And where the parking lot is now?
Yeah.
Let's walk up here so you can
Yeah.
see.
Do you remember a sundial anywhere?
Yeah, I
I
don't
keep
know.
thinking of a sundial, and I think it might have been in the garden, in the man's garden.
Well, now that could be.
Do you remember what kind of shrubs your dad had around the house?
I'm sorry, I don't remember. I know there were little flower beds out here on each side.
Of the walk?
Each side of the door, yeah.
Do they come down and connect with the beds in the rose garden?
They just sort of ended up right in here somewhere on both sides, and then you had grass and down the slope.
Well, where they've got these sort of French doors here now, was that a screen door or was that open? What was that when you lived here?
It was just a single door. And I don't remember these windows being slanted out like that. They were big windows, double windows, and they were flat, against the wall. They weren't pulled out.
Sherry, I'm going to have to be on my way.
Oh, are you?
But I'm sorry, I've got a plane to
Oh, my
catch.
heavens. Don't
But
read
this
it.
is really exciting.
Well, just
It's
get back
very
to Reynolda,
interesting.
folks.
And very nostalgic. Yeah,
It is,
it's
it
wonderful.
is.
Thanks so much for helping us out on
Anything I can do.
putting all
I'd
this
love
back
to.
together, right? Richard?
I can't do much, Barbara, but I like
You've
to
done a lot,
try.
and it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Take
See you.
care.
Nice to see
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Of course, I'm sure there was not a retaining wall like this out of landscape
not
timbers.
anything. This was flat land. Flat land all the way across. Here.
Was there? Did you have a side entrance that came in?
No, that's right. Yeah, that window's original. Right there. Now, I remember my mother had a beautiful lily of the valley bed. It was on the shaded side somehow or another. And it grew over. You come out here and it smelled so good. It really the valley was fragrant as it be anyway.
So
All
in
this is solid across here.
no door at all.
No.
Were there other windows there?
No, 'cause that was a hallway. That went from this bedroom all the way halfway down was a bathroom on this side, and then there was a bottom bedroom right there. There it was. Oh, that's been built up, that whole hill there. And this sort of, I don't remember this thing slanting as much as it did, but I guess it could have.
Did it look more like this?
Yeah. Right right around and get somewhere to where your well was. Right about in here. And then this big old barn of a house right in there.
Just that close to this house?
Well,
Seems like
when you're a kid, you know, you think it's further distance than it is.
but
I'd say
it would have had to been between here and the village tavern.
but maybe the well house is a little bit closer than that, right, maybe right around here somewhere. And then the house is set in there, so it's equally divided between this house and the other house down there.
Yeah, that was the one you described as,
Yeah.
as brick, just a circular brick well.
So what now?
Would you say this is kind of a brick well, kind of
Yeah,
circular?
it's an old-fashioned well house.
Well,
Yeah, with white columns.
Was this cut down to it maybe north here like this, or was it,
No, there was no walkway or anything out.
so this, they must have just
Oh
done
my
this
heavens,
with
I didn't even see that. No, none of this was in here at all. Now, our basement, I can tell you this, the basement had a tremendous room in it, a ping pong table. And back in its heyday, Dad would have a, what do you call it, game, spin it, and spin the wheel and put the ball on the wheel, and you know.
Not roulette.
Roulette.
Oh, roulette.
Had a big a big felt cover, and a roulette wheel down there. And he'd ask all the guys around the place to come out and play. One night he asked Dick Reynolds over, my mother make ham biscuits, best ham biscuits he ever put in her mouth. And came over, he asked Dick to come over one Saturday night, and Dick wiped them out, took every cent they had. They're about $100. And felt so bad about it. The next morning he went to that church where they put the whole $100 in the pot in the collection thing. No.
Because we wear you out, we'll wear out our welcome.
No.
Well, you've been talking for an hour and a half. It's 20 minutes of 5.
Good stuff.
If you're getting tired, we can come back another
No,
time.
I'm
I'll meet
just-
you in Winston. Would you like to come down and walk around Reynolda?
I'd love to do that.
When would be a good time for you to do that?
Well, before my garden comes in, if that comes in, you may as well count me out, because I'm in that garden every day. My fruit trees, they need spraying every week. I've got a few little things I'm trying to grow at Hilltop. I got more than I can do, and I just love it.
But you know, Bishop, you didn't answer that question.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
What about week after next? Richard, how's your schedule week after next? Or next Friday?
I think I can accommodate whatever.
Okay. What about, would you rather do it on Thursday or next Friday? I'm working on a big project, a big fundraiser next Thursday, so I'll be tied up all day Thursday, which is the day we usually work on this project. But,
I can be flexible.
what about next Friday? Would you like to come to Winston?
Let's make it tentative.
Okay.
That's why you can change your mind, I can
Okay.
change my mind.
Okay.
All right.
Next Friday.
I'm gonna look on the calendar.
Okay.
Because, I mean,
You
we
might
may
want
have
to do it,
something.
I don't know if it'd be more convenient to do it when you're coming down anyway.
Yeah. Is there a time you're going to go down to Hilltop?
I can go down to Hilltops at the drop of a hat.
Let me go get my calendar. I left it in the
Sure.
car. Excuse me.
We have really enjoyed using that place. And,
That's the 8th.
I'm going to get my calendar.
very fun.
The 8th.
What's that mean? But it will be
Next
there.
Friday. It's not this Friday, but next Friday. Because this Friday is your birthday. Like,
That's another thing wrong about me. I'm an April Fool boy.
It's actually the 8th, I think. Yeah, I split my time between Reynolda House and Old Sally.
oh, you did?
I work at Mazda.
Oh.
And,
Mm.
members
We have-
weekend coming up.
Yeah, you have wonderful, interesting jobs.
You certainly do. You like, I can see you like it.
Yes.
I can see it.
Hey, just let me interrupt 1 second. What time does the vehicle pass?
Probably 5:30.